Recently I stumbled across this painting and was struck by how normal it seemed. Well, familiar. Who was this artist painting such strange familiar forms? Art review. This is the work of Peter Birkhäuser. Peter Birkhäuser was born in 1911 in Switzerland. He started his career as a typical artist, producing landscape paintings, cartoons, posters, and portraits, until one evening, while working in his studio, he was struck by the image of a moth fluttering against the window. He painted this image, and it precipitated a midlife crisis for reasons unknown to him at the time. He would later say it was symbolic of his state of mind. The moth, representing his soul, was struggling against the glass, trying to reach the light, which represented consciousness to him. Peter had grown up rationalistic. Religion and the unconscious, it was all mystic insanity from his perspective. Yet he couldn't escape the feeling like he was missing something. This feeling is what led to the midlife crisis around the age of 30. His career started to go downhill, and he went into a state of depression, losing passion for his art. He left much of his work half-finished, and completing them just gave him a feeling of disgust. One day, Peter came across the work of none other than the psychoanalyst Carl Jung, and it struck a chord. Carl Jung wrote several books on psychology. One of his books is titled Modern Man in Search of His Soul. I think these ideas explained what Peter Birkhäuser was feeling exactly. According to Jung, the goal of the individual is to individuate, or to consciously progress. There are many ways of working on this, but one that seemed to stand out to Peter more than any other was dream analysis. Inspired by Jung, he began his quest to understand his unconscious, and he started by analyzing his dreams with the help of a therapist, a student of Jung's. This little experiment turned into a 35-year endeavor, during which he kept a record of over 3,400 dreams. It also led to him having a friendship with Carl Jung himself. His artwork became increasingly focused on these dreams. In 1953, Birkhäuser had a breakthrough with the painting, The World's Wound. This was the first time he was able to put forms and images from the unconscious onto the canvas without any kind of model or external reality, and free from slavish conscious control. He had been haunted by this face in his dreams for 4 years, and felt that this painting of the split man was in no sense a product of his conscious will. The World's Wound was originally titled The Split One. It was a representation of his inner schism, his over-reliance on his modern rational side, and his newfound spiritual side. However, he realized this schism wasn't unique to himself. Rather, it was the first of many paintings that would depict transpersonal psychological realities, archetypes of the collective unconscious. He changed the title from a statement simply about his own psyche to a collective statement on modern man with the title The World's Wounds. Birkhäuser's work took on new meaning. It wasn't just art evoking a fleeting emotion, it was art exploring the collective unconscious, perhaps one of the most important tasks one could undertake. Jung said, "The dream provides the stimulus, but it is only a sketch, a cartoon. You have to develop it and give it form," to which Birkhäuser had replied, "But I'm always afraid that I'm going to distort the original notion too much. In transferring such a delicate, insubstantial thing to canvas with thick oil colors, it often tends to change. Additional ideas which were not in the original impulse begin to obtrude." Jung answered, "That doesn't matter. That too is part of the unconscious impulse." From the moment Birkhäuser introduced the first of these fantasies to the public, he was met with blank incomprehension. No one wanted to buy his silly little dreams. The art world rejected them. Many of Birkhäuser's own friends were alienated, so that he became increasingly isolated. During this time, he was unable to support himself from his paintings and was forced to live from advertising work. It must have seemed like madness to the modern man who feels dreams are nothing more than incidental brain activity with no purpose or meaning. Nonetheless, Birkhäuser persisted. In this video, I will share with you many of his paintings along with the explanations written in the book Light from the Darkness, The Paintings of Peter Birkhäuser, mixed with my own commentary. But before I do, let me remind you that according to Jung, there is no absolute method of dream interpretation, and these explanations were not written by Birkhäuser himself. Depression 1 and Depression 2. We see the neurosis of depression, keeping the artist from creative expression, destroying his creative spirit. He is turned away from whatever lurks in the unconscious realm. Only by turning round to face the uncanny powers can he discover their secret inventions. Coming up, the ugliest man comes up from the sewers hunchbacked and wretched. His face mirrors the sadness of a being which has never been loved, for we have turned away from our unconscious soul. but he carries a lamp, a chance to bring light into the darkness of the modern world. The cat. We see an old woman with her evil claws and her mysterious animal eyes. In dreams, she threatens the artist's life, but also appears as the guardian of undiscovered treasures. She's the great mother archetype who can paralyze those who desire to regress to her, but who also possesses the age-old secrets of the instincts and nature. Dual. If we look at our conflicts objectively, they reveal themselves as part of the very nature of the psyche. For the unconscious both does and does not want to enter into our consciousness. Here, the more human-looking figure in the monk's habit of renunciation has the upper hand, since he has a weapon, a symbol of discrimination, which his opponent lacks. Imprisoned power. We see a powerful creature in the mountain looking as if it is about to erupt. We see a man near the bottom getting out of his car and running for his life. It is said that this behemoth represents the dark feminine side of God, waiting to be liberated from the depths of the earth. Puer. This is the new spirit of the coming age of Aquarius. Wherever he stretches his hands, new life begins to bloom. This is the boy God predicted in Revelation as the child who is snatched up to heaven. He's the complete man of the future. As for me, we see he has 4 arms, representing the complete self. 4 arms like the 4 points of the Christian cross. The 4 points represent the persona, what we perceive as ourselves, the anima, or our feminine side, the animus, our masculine side, and the shadow, our dark repressed side, so to speak. The integration of all of these into one is the self. He's riding a glowing white half-boar, half-horse. To me, this is reminiscent of the previous painting, The Imprisoned Power, but this time the complete self is in control. We also see a circle, symbolic of completeness. Here's one titled The Fourth Dimension. It is apparently based on a vision Peter had on his way to meet Jung. We can see a cityscape representing our 3-dimensional world, and then a cosmic background behind it, a 4th dimension flowing into the 3rd. Now the story behind this makes it all the more wild. Dreams are one thing, but visions are something that I have no experience with. The magic fish. Initially, I interpreted this as the anima and the animus embracing each other, united in a fish. A fish, something that lives underwater or in the unconscious, and there's this giant eye in the background being aware of this integration. However, his book suggests a different interpretation. The future world savior in his double form, still hidden in a fish in the depths of the sea. The fish's eye is like a flower, Earth's answer to the light of the sun. The huge blue eye at the top left suggests that something in the cosmic background sees everything. Within the fish, mortal and immortal man hold each other in a close embrace. The Outcast. From the gray monotony and functional technology of our industrialized towns, the spirit of the soul, the creative secret of nature, is banished. With heavy steps, he retreats towards the left, into the unconscious. He trails behind him a trail of flames, which is also a rainbow. The latter hints that reconciliation with God is still possible, but the fire would also destroy all our towns. The face of the outcast spirit is halved, just like the man from the painting The World's Wound. One half is green, the color of life, and one half is blue, like water or sky. Meaning this is acknowledging an even more nuanced split in the human psyche. Moira, the anima, her hair forms a space where the animus is missing. She's floating in darkness, incomplete in the unconscious. According to Jung, we are all bisexual. We have both a feminine side and a masculine side. We must integrate both sides. But here we see an unintegrated feminine side, lonely. Jung writes in Ion, it belongs to him, this perilous image of woman. She stands for the loyalty which in the interests of life he must sometimes forgo. She is the much-needed compensation for the risks, struggles, and sacrifices that all end in disappointment. She is the solace for all the bitterness of life. And at the same time, she is the great illusionist, the seductress, who draws him into life. Because she is the greatest danger, she demands from man his greatest. And if he has it in him, she will receive it. At the door, a divine creative power comes to the painter at night out of cosmic space, wanting to generate and form, but the artist has locked the door. He's afraid of his uncanny visitor. The latter, however, actually brings light and life, as opposed to the dark, narrow space where the artist has been living. The observer. This was the figure that struck me as oddly familiar. It was almost as if I had dreamed something close to this. Here's a similar painting. The name makes it all the more eerie. It is written in the book. Before we know ourselves, we are already known. The self watches us like a superior observer, as private protection. intimate understanding as an individual judge, an inexorable witness, allowing no self-deception. He is both subhuman and superhuman and sees things far beyond our conscious mind. The woman with the cup. The White Lady is popularly considered a harbinger of death, hence the darkened eyes, and she brings the cup of suffering and transformation. Now, when Birkhäuser painted this, he had no explanation for it, but shortly after it was completed, his wife died suddenly. The delicate vessel is reminiscent of the Grail, which provides truth and spiritual nourishment. The whole ghostly figure seems to be outside the colorful realm of life. Lighting the torch, the creative person experiences the divine grace of being allowed to light his torch at the fire of the Creator. Birkhäuser once dreamed that he was given this grace. The animal face in the fire in the form of an 8-petaled flower signifies enlightenment and order in the chaos. Peter died in 1976, but left an important legacy. He said, "Art today cannot be considered merely from the aesthetic standpoint. It is not an end in itself according to the motto of art for art's sake, but should again be looked upon as an effort to give expression to new, unknown, and urgent psychic contents." It was a pleasant rabbit hole, and he's a fascinating artist, but I wouldn't rank him among the best artists in the world. I like his approach more than his actual paintings. Anyway, that's all I had to say. What do you guys think?